I have the pizza.
Oh, over, yeah. Could you put it in, yeah. Could you,
Oh, where does he want it?
Tenderfoot?
Tenderfoot.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have 5 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a work session followed by a regular meeting at 6. And first off, we have the Extraordinary Teen Council update. Really appreciate you being here and all the work you're doing and for all the people you're representing, so thanks.
So I'm Maddox. I'm the Youth Council Liaison, I think is the technical term for ETC. We put on events for the community for teenagers. We have an upcoming event on the 27th of February with the Boys and Girls Club. That's gonna be there. I think it's just gonna be, we're gonna watch a movie, pizza, popcorn, Boys and Girls Club stuff. So we're gonna be sending out the SRO survey amongst the school again here soon. And it's the same one that we did last year, except I was gonna add one more question at the end, which is just, do you have any other general concerns about our community that you wanna be voiced to just gather more concerns from youth? Because we're kind of having a hard time coming up with other concerns currently from then. And yeah, that's all I have for that because we haven't sent that out yet. Do you have any questions?
The questions?
Yeah, the only question, I mean, I guess as far as other events that ETC had established in previous years, as far as how they apply to, like, say, FIBARC with, like, the teen safe space in Riverside. I don't know if there was any intention of, like, carrying over any of those from previous years or doing new events like that, or...
We have a few more events. I don't think we have dates for them yet, but we don't have anything around FIBARC like you were saying yet.
Okay.
But that could
I guess
be a good
something
idea.
to just, like, keep in mind. It was something that was established, like, for over the past couple of years that might be worth either revisiting or maybe doing something else. But
Didn't they have something, was it mocktails or non-alcoholic drinks? Because, FIBARC is,
Right.
Oh,
FIBARC is just overflowing with booze, and it's really nice to have a space for people that want sobriety.
Yeah, we did that for Sunfest.
Mm.
So when we did that last year for Sunfest, yeah.
I could probably find you some contact info if you need to get hold of somebody around FIBARC, if you'd like to reach out and see if they need any help or what you guys could help out with, for sure.
Because we had heard from the young people too, that they really liked that because that gave them a place to hang out with other young people. I mean, kind of like old people do over other kinds of drinks, but they could be together and share fancy drinks. So I just loved that.
Yeah, I thought that it was cool during Sunfest last year. We could definitely do something like that again and also during FIBARC.
I mean, I personally find people who are sober more interesting. Just saying.
And well-behaved too.
Yeah,
Polite, all those good things.
Yeah, that's kind of good.
But yeah, and I appreciate doing that outreach, tying it into the survey as far as any other greater concerns in the community. We want to hear that. You're our boots on the field for that, and whatever you hear, we want to know. So I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now, next up, we have the Mountain Valley Transit update. Oops, that bag will get you every time.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kate Garwood. I'm the board chair for Mountain Valley Transit. And you saw this wonderful graphic. We had a great year, actually. For the first time, we went over 20,000 rides. And you got 72% of those rides in this community. Not Chaffey County, in this community. There, you can see the breakdown of what the rides are used for, and we finally figured out we probably need to discern a little bit more about what other is. We probably need a couple more breakdowns since that's more than a quarter of our ridership. The other thing, a couple other things important are the wheelchair ridership. It may not seem like a big piece of the pie, but if you don't have access to wheelchairs transportation, it's important that we're available for them. So that's how many wheelchairs we took on trips this year.
How do you do outreach to that community?
Several ways. Often the health department or the human services department will say, go here. We also advertise or put up flyers, pamphlets in the clinics, things like that. A lot of word of mouth for that. In addition, we have 3 members of the health department on our on our board as advisory board members. So they help us get in touch with the communities that need them. So, and Medicaid, of course, gives them who they can ride with, and we are registered
Okay,
folks with them.
thanks.
After a very long workout with their recredentialing. So, some numbers that you might appreciate. This is just for Chaffey County, not the entire service area that we have that goes down to the New Mexico border, but just for Chaffey County, we had a 14% increase in ridership. And back in the pandemic time, the best we were doing was about 10,500 rides. This year, our whole system did 21,115 rides.
Wow.
Some other things that translates to, in Chaffey County, it translates to 63 rides a day that are going up and down the roads here in people needing them. In miles, that was 190,880 miles, just using a 70-cent mile reimbursement like the feds do. That means we saved people $133,616 that they didn't take out of their pockets and put into their vehicles and any other transportation costs, just at that 70 cents per mile cost. That's in Chaffey County. So I think that piece alone can help prove that we're serving a need here. It also helps people who are maybe a little housing poor or a little job poor. It helps them stretch their dollars a little better. So just a quick year in review for you. In the Medicaid review re-credentialing was, I think somebody called it debilitating. We had to get 12 credentials for each driver, 5 for each vehicle. And it's not bad things, it's just that they wanted all this stuff like yesterday. So that was the 90 miles an hour with your hair on fire kind of exercise. We lost Mike, so that's been interesting, and I am out of retirement for a while here until we find somebody, but it looks like maybe within the next couple months we might be able to find someone. We've had some board changes. You know that Bill is on our board. We've added Gary Baker to the board from the county. We're going to add a Poncha Springs planner to our board as well. And we hope to have the new planner from BV joining us. And the reason is then we can plan with the communities through their comprehensive plans and help meet our mutual needs. We had an interesting issue with our building. Someone came in for a Mustang ride, decided to heat her burrito in the oven because it had a foil wrap on it, and didn't do it in the microwave for that reason, didn't turn off the oven. We had a gas leak. That was the beginning. The gas leak, it showed that the oven was leaking more than just from not being turned off. We had an inspection done and found out that the wiring in the breaker box is illegal, and the garage wiring is bad, and the appliances that are over 40 years old, the floor of the freezer and the refrigerator had cracked, and there was mold in the insulation. So we got rid of all of our appliances because they were 40 years old or more. We're in an old mobile home, so that's why it's that way. The floor is being held up by the carpeting in some places, but, you know, it's an old place. So we are looking for something new and, or something to, you know, I don't know that it's worth rehabbing this building. It's really got some significant issues. We have updated our maintenance program. We found our vehicles we were spending about $25,000 per vehicle on maintenance. Not acceptable. So we've got a new program in to kind of, well, to do better. We've got we hired an operations manager actually just Friday. So we're happy about that. We have an HR consultant who is working with us, demystify HR, and I'd recommend him to anybody. He is cleaning up our employment practices, getting our training done, and we've got some drug and alcohol training that we're doing. Let me tell you, you want to talk to some serious people, they are serious. They are not letting us get by with any missing period or uncrossed T. We will do their job. And other than that, we're looking for an executive director. So I'm happy to answer any questions for you, but I would like you to know that we are doing a good job in Salida, helping serve the community.
See that? Yeah.
We see the
Questions?
van everywhere, so
Yeah.
that tells us what we need to see.
Questions? Yeah.
Kate, aside from what may possibly happen to Medicaid, are there any other federal funding cuts that MVT is experiencing right now due to the federal freeze?
Not really. We have an advantage in a couple ways. Number one, we get state and federal funding. The federal funding that we have active right now has been locked, and we were far enough into procurement processes. So we've got 2 vans coming in within the next 6 months that are not touched by that because they're done. Future funding, possibly for, you know, any more vans than that. We try and replace at least 1 or 2 a year, because I think the Mountain Goat has 450,000 miles on it. So we're trying to recoup the fleet. The one thing that might be difficult is expansion. And we do have plans for expansion in areas of Salida, including a circulator. And maybe it's a circulator that goes to Poncha and comes back, or maybe it goes around Salida and then goes back out and comes. Anyway, we're trying to sort that out. We've got a planning grant that was also not touched by federal funding, and we want to update the statistics for what people need and want, and we're going to do that. So right now, crossing fingers, toes, and everything, and I think we're going to be okay until this settles down.
What about in terms, I mean, with all the growth that you've seen, and you're going from 10,000 to 21,000 rides, what has that meant in regards to capital expenditures, infrastructure, et cetera?
Infrastructure-wise, it does affect the site that we're on. We don't have a place for everything. I think we're on about 2 acres, slightly less than that, but it's not all parkable. There's a septic field, I think, or a well field there, and we can't park in that area. Also, it's kind of cattywampus on the site if compared to the road. It's not.
Seeing a transportation planning term, I see.
You know what I meant.
I did.
The thing we're most concerned about is the safety of the vehicles. We've had catalytic converters stolen, so that's difficult. At the airport in Buena Vista, we can put our vehicles behind the fencing. We don't have that option here. So a little bit of that. Infrastructure-wise, that's about it, other than what I told you about the building. But staff-wise, we have been able, thanks to this HR company, they've been doing a very good job of getting drivers for us. And so we're very pleased with that. They're almost there on the ED. But yeah, that's been really good. And we've hired this operations manager has been, that's going to be helpful too. So actually, people's salaries were adjusted upward a little bit too, but we're not concerned. Our budget is maybe 4% above what it was last year, but we've got funding committed for all of that.
Thanks. Anything else? Yeah, sorry.
Maybe just for public knowledge, do the circulator buses, do they have bike racks on them?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't got one doing the circulator right now, but we would like to have, we will order all of our vehicles that way.
Great. I see for the social recreational piece of the pie, 4.1%. It just made me think about bike racks and making sure the public knows that they can bring a bike on the bus.
They absolutely can. Plus, they're easy to the vehicles are easy to retrofit for them, so works out.
Good luck with all your staffing concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to be retired again. My garden is calling. Thank you for all your support on this, too. We do well in Salida, and we're happy about that.
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kate. Great, so there's pizza in the Tenderfoot room. We could take a break until 6.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thanks. It's just for that 7-Eleven Coleman, in case a legal question comes up.
Everything that we said is here. Yeah. I remember very well. Took hours of my life away.
Like staring at it to change. It just won't.
Do a couple of cartwheels? What? You want to do a couple of cartwheels while we wait?
No, we're good. Good evening, everybody. I have 6 o'clock. If you could all please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Christie, could you take a roll call, please?
Sure. Pappenfort,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Nacarado,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Critelli,
Present.
Fontana,
Here.
Mayor Shore.
Here.
A quorum is present.
And that brings us to the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on that this evening? Yes.
I have a comment. So I know we're going to, well, hopefully we're going to approve the consent agenda. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Finance Committee and especially Amy. She did a lot of work, and we're just going to approve it with one vote here. But Amy did a lot of work on this, and I really appreciate that. Picking with the Ellers and the Associates and the Municipal Advisory Services. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Did you make a motion?
No,
I move to combine and approve the consent agenda.
second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Fontana, and the motion is to combine and approve the items on the consent agenda. Further discussion?
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that takes us to citizen comment, and thank you. That was very anticipatory. And with citizen comment, this is an opportunity for council to hear from our community. There is a strict 3-minute limit to speaking time. There will be a clock. You can see it on the screen. At the end of the 3 minutes, I will thank you. And if anyone feels like that wasn't enough time, please feel free to reach out to me after the meeting. But I'm going to hold everyone strict accountable to that for this meeting. I want, in the interest of fairness. Council may not respond to your comment this evening. Rather, they may take your comments and suggestions under advisement, and your questions will be directed to the appropriate department for follow-up. And if necessary, the city administrator will correct the public record. And first up tonight, I have Dewey Groover. And if everyone could please come up here to the mic and make sure you speak into the mic, because there are people listening online on YouTube.
Where's your timer visually?
It's
I
right
can't see
here
it.
and here. Yep.
Here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Tell me to when I can go.
You can go right now. You're good.
My name is Dewey Groover. I am a Salida resident living with my family at 7285 County Road 160. I am here tonight to speak to the pre-application conceptual review for the property at 7305 County Road 160, adjacent to our property, heard at your last meeting. I strongly object to the density of this major housing development. Packing in 16 units in approximately 600 feet of frontage on County Road 160 is obscene and dangerous. At present, the row of 9 single-family residences on the east leading to it each have approximately 120 linear feet of frontage. These dimensions would suggest only 4 to 5 units being built on this proposed build site. I also object strongly to the proposed plat, which has a 5-foot pedestrian trail abutting my property. If there were to be any trail in that area, it should be designated for wildlife and should be extend 20 feet into this developer's property. We have observed for 12 years that the eastern portion of this property has been a living corridor for wildlife traversing from the fields below to the upper mesa and back down again. Deer, fox, coyote, bobcat, bear, and Canada geese marching their goslings back and forth as they use this corridor. we beseech you, the town council, to consider preventing a bottleneck for wildlife, as this proposed plan will surely do. This game corridor next to our house is the only route animals can safely use to access the mesa, all the way from the jail on the east to Franz Lake on the west. If the pedestrian trail is so desirable in the council's view, then we request that it be placed in the middle of the development, while also creating this corridor for wildlife on the east side of the property. As you consider this developer's proposal, please take a step back and see the whole picture. Please also make sure that all stakeholders are informed, given time to respond, including the district wildlife manager of Salida West. Please prioritize the needs of wildlife, which enrich the lives of all of us. There's a lot at stake. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next up, we have Mary Ann Hauser, MA.
Hi, I've come to talk about the exact same thing. And I live on the other side of this proposed development, but I'd never received any information. And that's my first question. How come I wasn't informed? I thought that if your property abuts a proposed development, I hadn't received anything. Without the Groovers, I would not have known. So my first question is, isn't this site, I've not verified this, but isn't this site one of the original homesteads? Doesn't that carry some historic significance? I hope it does. My other question, just like Mr. Groover, is what about the animals? Everybody, well, I can certainly attest to the fact that animals use it daily, regularly, and in large numbers. My other question is about that land use code. A big part of that was directed toward preserving our views, controlling development. Where rural, we have beautiful views. How much is that view worth? Do you remember when, before there were houses along the road, we could look to the north, we could see so far? It was lovely. There's no place to have that view anymore. So how much is a view worth? And if we get as far as, maybe this will be approved, who gets to determine what it looks like? And I know art and architecture, that's kind of, it's subjective. But I look at the way that we come into our town on the east, it's not at all what it used to look like. I would hate to see that sort of development. There's nothing pretty right now. The view is kind of pretty. And if it goes forward, then I always want to know, who makes the money from this? How much will it cost taxpayers? How much will it cost taxpayers in the long run? If you have to build an acceleration and a deceleration lane, if you have to put in bike paths, who pays for that? It's my impression that developers don't, and taxpayers will. And we all know that the more people that come here, the more needs we'll have. We'll need more electric substations. We'll need to increase the size of our water treatment plant. We'll need to build new schools. So I think it's something that all of the public should be involved in questioning, and all of the public should have answers. Thanks.
Thanks, appreciate it. I'm just going to take a moment, because I think there's a little bit of confusion around. There was a meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was a conceptual meeting. No paperwork has been filed by a developer at this point. If and when that happens, that's when neighbors in the community will be notified. And it's a multi-step process. There will be public hearings, but the reason you haven't heard is because nothing's been brought to us yet. And that's just the way the laws and the statutes work. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Okay, yeah, do you want to?
No, thank you for,
Okay.
I was going to address that. I just wanted to check, we have one person online, but she didn't raise her hand, so I just want to make sure. Janai, did you have public comment?
She's,
I'm all set. Thanks, Christy.
Okay, thank you.
So that's it for public comment?
wait, we have Adam Martinez.
Okay.
too.
Adam, do you have public comment?
Can you hear us, Adam?
Well, just,
Is he muted?
I'm having a problem.
It's usually pretty good about getting out here. and
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not. Oh, it's because he's using an older version of Zoom Workplace. So he cannot unmute.
Oh. Okay.
So it's,
Adam, you're using an older version of Zoom that will not allow you to unmute.
we'll have to reset him up.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, anyone else? Okay, all right, so that will take us to unfinished business and ordinance 2024-09, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, amending the city code to add section 10-7-90 entitled knowingly allowing underage persons to possess or consume ethyl alcohol and/or marijuana on private property to the Salida Municipal Code. This is a second reading, previously scheduled for the 16th of July. No public hearing will be held. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Typically, we would have ran this back a couple weeks after and passed this through as an ordinance. We were asked to hit pause after the first time we brought it to you. After doing a bunch of meetings and talking with the municipal prosecutor for us and Poncha and Buena Vista, we've decided to go in a different direction. We can address this issue now by a change in state statute 433901. That gives us the ability to charge this in the state courts instead of municipal court, where we have more resources as far as juries and jury pools, calling witnesses, things like that. So what we're suggesting is we do not approve the second reading on this. We're gonna take our focus away from this issue, and that same group's gonna do something with vaping that we'll be back with months down the road.
Any questions? It's pretty straightforward to me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
Go ahead, Wales.
I
Please.
move to deny the adoption of the social host ordinance 2024-09.
Second.
so we have a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Curtelli, and the motion is to deny the adoption, social host ordinance 2024-09. Further discussion?
Critelli,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes?
Fontana,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, and moving on to new business and resolution 2025-07, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving an amendment to Section 7 entitled Inclusionary Housing of the Development Improvement, Subdivision Improvement, and Inclusionary Housing Agreement for the Home and Court Plan Development and Major Subdivision. Thanks, Bill.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So yes, in front of you, we are discussing a request that came in from a local developer in regards to an inclusionary housing unit that was included in a previous inclusionary housing agreement, and the request specifically to release him from the requirement to build and sell that as an affordable unit in place of providing a fee in lieu. I'm going to get into the specifics of that here in just a minute. I want to mention that there's some updates to the staff report that I want to call out, both on the part of the request of the applicant as well as the staff recommendation. So first, the applicant's request has been adjusted to account for an offered fee in lieu at the current fee in lieu rate times the average size of the structures in this development times 6 units. subtracting the amount that has been paid in interest over the last 14 months on that particular unit that was built. And then in addition to that, I'll get into more specifics about the staff recommendation, but basically, in a nutshell, the initial recommendation included $44,000 in change in suggested fees in lieu that were actually being double counted. So really I'm just extracting that piece from the overall recommendation. So with that, I'm gonna jump to a presentation that I have that provides everybody with a little bit of background on this particular request. Let's see if I can get this to
Is
go.
it on?
Oh, is it? That's a good question. It is on. It doesn't seem to want to work for me. Christy, if you could just go ahead.
Okay.
Next slide. So this is the project we're talking about. It's the Holman Court Plan Development and Subdivision, 14 units that were approved in 2021 just west of Holman Ave near the Salida Aquatic Center. Next slide. So there's 14 units as part of this particular project. The eventual inclusionary housing agreement was for the developer to build 2 inclusionary housing units and sell them both at or under 80% AMI. The agreement was based on the old code in which 1 inclusionary housing unit would cover 8 total units, and the maximum sale was at 80% AMI. A couple of years later, the developer came in and requested some changes based on the new code at the time, which currently has 1 inclusionary unit per 6 total units and allows for a maximum of 140% AMI sale. That requested amendment was approved to allow 2 IH units to be sold, one at or below 120% AMI and the other at or below 140% AMI, plus a fee in lieu to cover the remaining 2 market rate units not covered by those 2 IH units, because the entire project is 14 units total. At the time, that fee in lieu was estimated at approximately $61,000. So today, flash forward, all 14 units have been built and CO'd, and the applicant has sold 1 of those IH units, the one listed at up to 140% AMI. Next slide, please. So the applicant, as I mentioned, has had difficulty selling that second IH unit, which was to be listed at up to 120% AMI for a variety of reasons that were explained in his email to staff and council. And the updated request is pointed out here, and this is the request that was received over the weekend and amended as such. Again, our $13.59 per square foot current fee in lieu times the average square footage of all those units in the development times 6 units, which would equal to a little over $124,000, but subtracting $49,000 in loan interest, which has apparently been accrued over the last 14 months, for a total fee in lieu of a little over $75,000. So that's the applicant's current request. Next slide, please. I want to take this moment to just do a brief overview of our inclusionary housing policy and the inclusionary housing fees in lieu for the council's benefit, but also the benefit of our live TV audience and everybody else out there in the world who might be interested. So current policy does say that 1 out of 6 units in developments are required to be built and deed restricted for either sale or for rent. Those for sale units can be sold at either 100% AMI, 120%, or 140%, with an average of all of those IH units being no higher than 130%. For rent units can be rented at either 80% or 100% AMI, with at least half of them at 80% AMI or less. We apply fees in lieu when the proposed development is either less than 6 units or when there is a fractional remainder of units above those multiples of 6. Next slide. The way that we apply the fees in lieu is that they are applied across all the units that are not offset by a deed-restricted inclusionary housing unit. And it's intended, the purpose of that fee in lieu is intended to make up what's called the affordability gap for one unit out of every 6. Currently, the affordability gap, which is your median market rate home over a 12-month period, that's the base number we use, minus the cost for an affordable comparable home, which we put at 3 bedrooms and 130% AMI. That difference, that delta, is currently calculated at a little over $134,000. And that basically our market rate is around $640,000, and 3-bedroom at 130% AMI is just over $500,000. That's where that number comes from. And these fees are generally applied at the time of building permit submittal. So that affordability gap is spread out over all the units that are not covered, again, by a built unit. And we get to that number that we currently have today, which is $13.59 per square foot. Next slide. This is a bit of a graphical representation of inclusionary housing and the fees in lieu. Take 14-unit development, similar to the one in question. Every 6th unit would be required to be built and deed restricted for sale, leaving a remainder of 2 units that are not covered. And so you would take that that fee in lieu per square foot, $13.59, multiply it, in this case, by the average square footage across all of those units. That varies according to the project. In this case, all of the units have already been built. That's why we chose to take an averaging of all of the square footages and multiply it by those 2 units that are uncovered. That would be the fee in lieu in this particular case under the current fee schedule of $41,395. Next slide. What the applicant has proposed, because of course one inclusionary housing unit has already been sold, that would leave a remainder of 8 units if he was released from having to build and deed restrict and sell this unit. That would leave a remainder of 8 units under the current code, which we would apply the fee in lieu to. So that's those same numbers, except instead of multiplying by 2, we multiply it by 8. That's where we came up with the number of $165,580. It's via this particular calculation. Again, just if you could go back to the staff report, the recommendation here was to remove the previously discussed $44,000. The applicant has already paid about $14,000 and change in fees in lieu, which was subtracted from the previous requirement that had $61,000. That's where that $44,000 had come from. But that was actually applied to that remainder of 2. That $165,000 already takes into account those 2 units. That's why we're saying, oh, we don't, that was my error. That was my mathematical error. Just double counted there. And I thank Councilwoman Fontana actually for helping to point that out. In the staff report, though, we've laid out the various situations for comparison. The first table there that you see is what it was originally approved at, with the 2 units at 80%, no fee in lieu. Then after the first amended agreement, there was 1 unit at 120, another at 140, plus a fee in lieu of $61,000 approximately. Next page. The applicant's current request is amended there to show that they are proposing paying that fee in lieu over 6 units minus interest on that particular unit for a total of $75,000 and change. And then if we were to apply the code and fee schedule strictly for the current code, It's the last table there of the one unit that was sold at 140 and a total fee in lieu of 165,000 and change. I do believe we did get one piece of public comments, written comment that came in today from the Housing Authority. I believe you all have that. And obviously, council has the ability to, with this agreement, to decide whatever numbers they want to land on, or if they do want to go ahead and release this inclusionary housing unit. I'm available for any questions that you might have, and I believe we have somebody from the Housing Authority online as well, from the sounds of it.
And the applicants are here as well.
And the applicant is here, yeah.
Okay. Who would like to begin?
I'll begin.
Okay.
I would like to hear from the applicant. Is that okay to begin?
Yeah,
like that?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Do we want to do,
Questions directly for.
why don't we go with questions first, and then during discussion?
Then hear from,
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do that. See if there are just any outstanding questions. Did you have any questions, or that was?
I do. Somebody else can go first.
Okay. Becca?
Hi, yeah, I'm still formulating my questions, too, but I guess the big overarching question I have that, Bill, you could try to answer, or Janai, online for the Housing Authority or the applicant, is what is going on with this inclusionary unit that's making it so hard to sell? And does it have to do with, what we heard about at CAS, where we're just looking at the AMI and it's very one-dimensional to just look at the AMI and not factor in these cost of living issues that we have in our community too? And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you answer that, or if you can, but I would love for someone to try.
Well, I think there's a variety of factors. The applicant did point out in his email some of the rationale or some of the reasons, at least from his perspective, as to why it hasn't sold. Obviously, we do have to take into account the rising interest rates, which has an impact on people's ability to pay a mortgage and therefore qualify for that particular loan. That's made it a little bit more challenging. The fact that the lowest rate loans, which right now are primarily coming out of USDA, are not loans that we currently accept as part of our deed restriction program, because they do not guarantee that it will remain affordable in perpetuity. So we've seen, even before this council, other families who have attempted to purchase homes, including this one in question, that were turned down because they were using a loan from a lender that would not agree to that particular portion of our deed restriction. There are certainly other elements to it, as far as people, their own eligibility, because they make too much money, or maybe even because they have not saved up enough money for a down payment. There's a variety of factors. I assume that Janai might have some other things to add, and perhaps the applicant as well.
Yes, I'd love to hear from Janai on that too.
Janai, are you with us?
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. I definitely agree with Bill. Interest rates have not helped. I believe they went up sort of right as this unit was coming online. And the inability to use USDA loans is also a challenge here, because as Bill stated, those are really the lowest rate loans for this pool of applicants who are making, the incomes in the range that we need them to be. Additionally, there's certainly some marketing challenges. I think, as you all know, that the Housing Authority is an organization that's new to marketing these units, as this is one of the first three. We're absolutely working on it, and we've been proved quite a bit. We have a handful of viable applicants that have applied and actually made offers on the property since those original folks were denied way back in 2023. So we are improving, but we absolutely admit it has not been exceptional marketing. One other piece of that, which is mentioned in our memo, is that the property wasn't listed on MLS. I actually don't know if it's listed on MLS today. Maybe the applicant can let us know, but I personally had fielded many inquiries and sent people to our sort of small listing on our website. And the fact that MLS was not, it was listed as inactive on MLS was very confusing for many, many people. I personally had about at least 10 folks who were interested who sort of stopped their pursuit because they saw it was inactive when they looked it up. So it is confusing. Sometimes the simplest things do have kind of a large effect. What do we cover? Interest rates. I think, additionally, the newness of the program overall, which sort of dovetails with CHA's, early stage marketing challenges. I think just IH is new. So a lot of folks don't quite know about it yet in our county. And I can leave it there and maybe the applicant can speak to the MLS question.
And we'll bring them up shortly after we get through our questions.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if anybody else has one.
Does anyone else want to go, and then we'll come back? Make sure everyone gets a chance.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. I feel like that we could do part of this and that part of it needs to be done at the code level. That if we, allow such a major exception to the fees in lieu, that we're setting up an awful precedent that we will never hear the end of. So I would really like staff to look into how can we fix the code such that it is not creating finance obstacles, because we've heard this story before. We want it deed restricted to the owner, but if the owner is out of the picture because they have defaulted on the purchase of the home, then the bank needs an opportunity to recap their investment. So how can we fix this? We can't do one-offs. It doesn't work. That's my question.
More of a statement.
Well, okay then.
It doesn't work.
Well, it was a question to ask staff to please look into it.
Okay.
How can we fix it out
I'll
of
put a
code?
question mark behind my notes.
Okay.
second, I guess?
Right. What's that?
Does that need a second?
No. You want to go ahead?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll come back and see.
So I have a question a little bit for Bill and the CHA. So if this unit here was one of the second units, and then it was to be sold, and it was listed, and he was one of the first developers in this new program, the CHA, how is it the CHA's responsibility, or how is it not, to help him sell this and to get a loan and to move forward with this? The house is obviously sitting empty. It has been empty for a while. There was a question on if it was listed or not. I know Stacy's here who has had the listing. So that would be for her also. Is if he was new to our program, how is it that the city cannot help him with some part of his financial burden that has been placed on him with this? As he's wants to have this unit released. I feel like it's the CHA or the city's responsibility somehow to help the developer out of this situation here. And Bill, I know we had a lot of emails. I really appreciate your help on this, trying to understand what is happening here with
It's
this.
complicated.
It's so
it's got a lot of
even your
context.
diagrams, you tried to make it easy, but,
I hope it helped.
yeah.
I think certainly Janai can speak more to how the CHA does help a developer in trying to sell or even potentially rent a deed restricted unit. I think I did read in the letter that they had sent over that they had put it onto their website at one point and ran it, I think, through their social media pages as well. And I think I actually remember seeing it on social media. To answer your question though about how the city helps with a developer in this situation. I think it's up to council ultimately to determine if the applicant, the developer, has been aggrieved in some way to be able to provide some sort of a relief, not only on the built unit itself and the deed restriction, but the fee in lieu ultimately that would be paid, which is pretty much the best answer, I guess, to relieving them of the requirement to deed restrict a unit would be a fee in lieu. I'll leave that up to you all as far as determining what you think the best answer is. My point with the recommendation, which was really to provide what the code would require, the code and the fee schedule itself. But ultimately, I do think that is up to you all.
Thank you.
Bill, you mentioned something about minus interest in the newer chart. I'm curious what that is.
I'm going to defer to the applicant on that one. I was a little confused myself because the applicant did mention payments of $3,500 a month and then talked about interest over 14 months and used that whole $3,500. So I've of course not seen the loan payments or anything like that. So I would defer to the applicant to maybe explain more about that.
I think what it was a proposal around after 6 months, if it still hadn't sold, that's when the interest would start, the calculator or the timer would go off. Because 6 months would be a reasonable amount of time with which to sell a property, so it wouldn't start until.
Correct, yes, that was the proposal was that he would reclaim interest that he's paid over the last 14 months, which did not include the first 6 months that it was up for sale, as I understand. My only question to that is, were the $3,500 payments, were those all interest? Or was that the intention, was to include the entirety of the loan payment or just the interest portion? So, but I think the applicant
And we'll
can
bring
speak to
him
that.
up shortly as we get through questions. We'll start discussion with that.
I have a question. Councilmember Fontana, you mentioned emails between you and Bill about this?
Right, and he answered, he tried to put it in a very nice diagram, my questions, so that everybody could see the same thing, with the little pictures of the houses.
Okay. I may care to share with the rest of the class. I feel like all of that kind of communication.
Yeah, that's why
should
he did
be
it.
in-
Yes.
So everything that you guys talked about is included in this? I just like all conversations in a public meeting to see the, sunshine, right? That's a good idea.
I didn't understand the 1.6 and the 1.8,
Okay.
and the fees at the time and the fees
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and these are all things that we could definitely discuss in public,
Yep.
Yeah.
in the sunshine.
To answer your question, everything that was discussed between
Yeah.
Councilwoman Fontana and I is encapsulated in the information I provided.
Okay. And I'll just remind council about chain of command as well. It's highly irregular to have in-depth conversations with staff, not in a public meeting. Our go-between is City Administrator Dune or the mayor. At least that's just how I understand it and how I operate for the last years.
And to be
Am I out of
clear, City Administrator Dune was included on those emails.
Oh, good.
Just
Yes.
so
Okay,
you know.
great.
Yeah.
I don't want any appearance of impropriety. Cool. I'm ready to hear from the,
Okay. I know you have
Applicant.
something.
One
Okay.
more
oh,
esoteric question. Well, just let me know if I'm wrong in this. Will you let me know if I'm wrong in this assumption? It seems.
I'll let you know.
That's my question. It seems like it's better utilitarian-wise for this unit to stay in deed restriction in perpetuity than to release it, even with the significant fee in lieu that the city would receive, because we're talking about generations worth of benefit for it to stay in deed restriction, versus us having that funding, which we'd then have to work to turn over to leverage against grants to build something, this is already built. Will you tell me if there's any reason why it would be more beneficial at this time to accept the fee in lieu than to leave it as a deed restricted unit?
To answer the first part of your question, I think generally speaking, it's always more beneficial to the community to have a built deed restricted unit than it is to have a fee in lieu. Because a fee in lieu will never pay for the cost of building a brand new unit. And the way that we have to conduct business as we collect fees in lieu, there is often a significant lag time between collecting fees in lieu and actually seeing built units, right? Because it takes, number one, we're probably not gonna build units one at a time. It's very inefficient to do so. So they'll probably be connected as part of a rental project or, other more dense, more efficient project. But it will take years before you actually use the dollars that you get in the door as a fee in lieu before that turns into an actual affordable unit.
Thank you.
And then, so any other questions? I wanted to make a statement before I bring the applicant up, but any other questions? Are we good? Okay. So what I wanted to share is that this unit was on the cusp of being sold in the summer of '23. And it would have been sold, I see some of the housing authority numbers and they're talking about, $399 and then $435, which were still well below what by the agreement he could have sold it at, because you were talking at 110% AMI. But initially it was proposed to be sold, my understanding was for about $370,000. And they had put additional money into it, air conditioning, carpeting. They even released back to the potential buyer the earnest money. So they acted in really good faith, and what tripped them up was our deed restrictions. Our deed restrictions didn't allow for the USDA loan, even though we have a community partner here in Chafee, the Housing Trust, which is able to work with the USDA loans. And when you combine that with rates going up, my sense from everything I've read and discussions I've had, they operated with the best of intentions, tried to sell something well below market rate. It would have happened. And I know and I understand our legal counsel is trying to protect us from units going into foreclosure. But my understanding in talking to Reed at the Housing Trust is these foreclosure rates on deed restricted units are minimal. And so what I struggle with right now, and then I'll get off my soapbox, is that, here we are trying to build all these units, and let's say we build 100, and let's say we lose 1 or 2 or 3 to foreclosure, we're still helping 97 other families. And I haven't used this saying in a long time, but it's like perfect being the enemy of the good. And that's what this feels like. We had an opportunity to sell this thing. People could have been in that unit 2 years ago. And because of our restrictions, which I think can be managed, it disappoints me. Like if I was sitting out in the audience looking up at council and I had operated and done everything with the best of intentions, and then the deal goes through or doesn't go through because of one of our restrictions, it just doesn't seem fair. It's almost like they were the guinea pigs, and I am all about inclusionary housing. I just want it to be thoughtful and I want it to be fair. So I'm off my soapbox.
I have one more question.
Okay.
That came up from what you said.
Yeah.
Is it possible in any way to turn this unit over to the Housing Trust so they can accept USDA loans for it? Like, is there a way to do that? I understand there's a whole ownership issue and ground leasing or,
Yeah, I think it's a compensation issue, for the applicant.
I guess the question is, has that been discussed?
Not with me.
I have a question.
Okay.
On that. So I reached out to Reed as part of my questions. I wanted to go to someone who understands this, and I didn't understand it myself. So I reached out to him, and I asked him how the deed restriction works with the CHT. And he point blank told me that if this unit had not had that deed restriction, if on the lending from the banks, that it would have sold. Not the deed restriction, the part where if any bank could have lent it and had it gone into foreclosure and been that 1 or 2%, that the bank could have taken it back and released the deed restriction if it had gone into foreclosure. Reed said he thinks it would have sold. So I think what the mayor is talking about is we need to revisit and figure out how to let more people have loans for this.
Yeah,
As
it's confusing because I
very
know,
confusing.
but I know Reed to be one of the biggest champions of deed restriction in perpetuity.
absolutely, and they don't have that.
Right. But I mean,
They have the
like,
ground
so
lease
that's the
model.
thing. I mean, if that's the part of this discussion is we're gonna rewrite our code tonight, we need to have a notice for that sort of thing, I
We
think.
aren't rewriting the code tonight.
No, yeah, we're not rewriting the code because we would have to notice that,
You'd
right?
be up all night.
So, yeah, right. But so just to let you know that deed restriction in perpetuity to make sure that there wasn't this buy a place, flip it, buy a place, flip it. Because when you say out of 100 units, only 1 or 2 or 3, stop being affordable, it's like how often is that? Every 5 years? Every 10 years? We discussed that at length. This wasn't like, yeah, let's just throw darts at the wall and see what sticks. So just to throw that out there too, I sat for many hours of agonizing over every detail of IH, deed restriction and perpetuity being one of them. I think that how do you protect from what my favorite HGTV shows about flipping houses, I mean, every show is about that. How do you protect against that obvious issue? Just to think about, food for thought for those that weren't there for those discussions.
And so maybe, because I want to pile onto that, maybe you can clarify if need be, but to me, the deed restriction around those units as 1 or 2% that might foreclose, it's not a flipping issue. It's somebody who simply gets underwater on their mortgage and it goes back to the bank. So it's not someone who's profiting off of it. They're just, they got over their skis and they can't afford it. Am I right?
Yeah, and to clarify, the changes, I mean, I defer to legal on this one. I don't think that the language in our code about deed restrictions, deed restricted, affordable, and perpetuity is necessarily, in conflict with what is being discussed right now. The change would actually have to be in the deed restriction document itself, because I believe that's where it's very specific to a loan that would require it stay affordable or potentially be sold to the housing authority or to the city. I don't think we'd have to go necessarily through a code change, but there would be need to change the actual approved deed restriction document.
Maybe having a work session to discuss this more, because it's not really pertinent to what we're discussing now with this applicant. We could maybe have Reed come in, have Marjo come in, and we can just discuss it. I don't know.
Someone else second that?
Second,
I think,
yeah.
okay. We can do that. We'll schedule
Okay,
that.
all right. Anything else before we have the applicant come up? Dave, if you could come up, that'd be great. Thanks. And Stacy, you're welcome to too, but no pressure.
Dave Larshell. Yeah, I don't know, you want to start with questions for me, or?
Why don't you, if you want to just maybe present?
Okay, I'll give
Wait,
a,
yeah,
yeah, I don't have much to argue with Bill. He went over it, and everything he had there was pretty accurate. And I pretty much I agreed to do all of that. The only, my issue is that it's been 22 months, and my cost to build that unit was probably around $500,000 with the land, and way to put the street in and everything else. So, and then, and I've got $435,000 construction loan on it, which is interest only. And I've been paying on, we sold the first one, which was great. You know, a veteran with a child, got a VA loan, like 3%. It was right out the gate before the interest rates went up. So that one went really smooth. And then, and I think things started tanking when the interest rates started climbing. I mean, they went from, you know, we were looking at 8%. And then, and so I've been paying, you know, my construction loans were 8% anyway, so even back then. So, so I've been paying $435 for 22 months, and period of that time we had it under contract, and if there was any MLS issues, is that we were hoping that we could rent it to her, and I was renting it to her at $1,400 a month, just so she could have a place to stay while she got financing. She was approved with the city, and so I got tied up for like 12 months, and at the end of that, she just couldn't swing the payments on it. So then when I put it back on the market again, you'll saw I raised the price a little bit because I'm trying to recoup some of the interest that I lost. So that's where that came from. Again, I don't argue with the numbers that Bill put up there. And so I'm basically asking for my thought on the deed restriction is if the builder had owned it, had, you know, tried to sell it on the MLS for 6 months, that would be significant, you know, sufficient time to be able to sell it. And after that, maybe he could have an option to turn it over in lieu of at what, you know, what the rate of the in lieu of would be, which would be $13.59 a square foot times 1,500 square feet times 6 buildings. So, and those are the kind of the numbers that Bill was talking about. You know, what I was hoping for is, you know, in fairness, maybe that I could get compensated since, you know, I've got like $80,000 in interest accumulated already. So if we kind of go back to the 6-month period, I you know, in good faith tried to sell it for 6 months, and then I've been paying the interest rates for the next 14 months, and that came to the, so that came up to the 49,000. So if we could, you know, so I would offer to pay the interest for that for the 6 months, and the last 14 months, like, could I get a break on that from the 168,000 or the, or was it, can't remember, was it 168? 165,000. So, you know, that would bring it somewhere around, you know, 100,000, or I guess my numbers are a little bit lower, but again, I think my numbers were different than Bill's because Bill was going 6, 6, and 2, and I was going with I felt like I built the first 8 and sold that inclusionary housing unit after that, because back then it was 8, and I feel like I fulfilled my obligation of the 8. But anyway, so if, however the numbers work out, if I could get a break on the interest for the 14 months, and I will be happy to pay the first 6 months and lift the deed restriction. And one other request I would have is that if we could then we would put the building up for sale in the open market, and you know, and if it was to sell for around 600,000 and with commissions and everything, I'd probably break even. I'd pay the 168 out of that and pay my construction loan and walk away. But right now it's sitting empty and it's not doing anybody any good. So So if, yeah, basically, I'm just kind of asking for a little break there. And again, I believe in the inclusionary housing, and it's just, the interest rates, and I don't know what it is, there's a few other things. I know the banks don't want to get in the same position as I am, they don't want to end up with that piece of property and be stuck with it. So it's making it tough, so.
Mr. La Rochelle, I have a question. The Housing Authority gave us this paper. On it, it mentions that there's an offer made at $399,000 in December 2024 that you declined. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, they wanted to, they had a piece of property that they needed to sell, that would have just taken I just got done taking it off the market because I had rented it, and I had it under contract while she was trying to purchase it. And then this buyer wanted to tie up the piece of property with the sale of another property. And at that time, we were already negotiating some of this. And so I got a feeling that that if they could have tied it up for another 4 to 6 months, and they would have ran into the same problem that everybody else has. So.
The other thing I would throw out there, just looking at this, and I'm looking at the Housing Authority sheet, they talked about the $399 and then the $435 and then $459, but what they didn't mention ever is by the agreement, you agreed to sell this at 120% AMI, and all of those numbers are below that. So
We want to sell the house. We wanted to sell the house very badly. It wasn't in a. I never knew that this day would come, and I'd be up in front of the city council, asking for a deed, to lift the deed restriction on it. My plan was just to try to sell it for as much as I could, and we had a lot of interest in it. But it's just the financing. The lenders just aren't that interested in it, and if they did qualify, the interest rates were just, I don't know.
And could you speak to what Janai had said earlier about how the MLS listing was listed as inactive, that claim?
That was, so when the house went under contract, first it went under contract, and then they turned out with the FDA. So we take it off the MLS because it's under contract, and then we put it back on the MLS, and then the next person came and put it under contract, and we signed a lease with them. So that was the problem. So I really couldn't really put it on the MLS and have people running in and out of there while she was living there. So.
And you said you rented it for $1,400?
$1,400, yeah.
And it's a 3-bedroom, is that what it is?
Yeah, well, she had to get out of this place really quick, so she needed to find a roommate to be able to qualify, and so I told her that I would lend it to her $1,400.
So you basically rented it at a really low AMI for over a year.
Yeah, and it wasn't just, I was hoping that she would buy it,
Sure.
and that's why I gave her the deal.
Sure.
But,
so you rented it for 14 months?
For 12 months.
For 12 months?
Yeah.
Have those revenues been included in these calculations that you presented?
What's that?
Have those revenues been included in the calculations you presented that you got from the rental?
No.
Because it hasn't been sitting empty.
So it's not been sitting empty the entire time, no. So 12 months out of the 22 months, it's been sitting empty.
12 of the 22.
I have a question for Bill about what the mayor had mentioned about the AMI that it was rented at. Mm-hmm. So that is below what is required?
Yeah, excuse me. I'd have to look back at the deed restriction, but if I recall, the requirement was that if David was going to rent it, it could be no higher than 80% AMI, which for a 3-bedroom, I got the numbers right here, comes out to, well, these are 2024 numbers, but I'm going to assume it was somewhere between 1,800 and 1,900 for 2023.
1940.
Oh, was it just 1940? Oh, you have
It was
the 2023.
1940, yeah, so.
Well, anyways, around there.
Oh, 60, 1960. right
That's
there.
the 2024 number.
Oh, okay.
It was, but anyways,
So less.
yeah, so, but certainly, if he was renting it at $1,400, it was less than what he would have been required to.
So
rent
he
it
was still taking a loss from his 3,500, but then he also had it listed, rented for $500 less a month than what he could have charged.
at. Sounds like it.
And then one more thing up on here. If you could explain the 6 units versus the 8 units one more time in the calculations?
Sure, yeah. When David came in for his original plan development approvals, our inclusionary housing unit, or our inclusionary housing policy was that one built unit would cover 8 total units, right? So 14 units, that meant that he technically would only needed to have built 1 inclusionary housing unit and would have paid a fee in lieu on the remaining 6.
But he chose to build 2.
He did, and I would say he did offer that up, but it was a planned development, so it was a negotiated agreement. I think that was sort of the assumed portion of the negotiation there.
Okay.
And he provided those 2 units. In the interim, our code changed to be 1 built unit per 6 units. So with 14 units, it's a minimum of 2 built units plus a remainder of 2. So that's why I'm saying if you're taking away 1 built unit, under the new code, you're left with 8 uncovered total units. Under the old code, it would have been 6, which is what David used.
So
in
he
his
calculated
calculations.
the old code and you calculated the new code.
Correct.
One more point of clarification, and on the sheet from the Housing Authority, which you may not have seen, it states the offer in December 2024 of $399,000 declined by the property owner, and then another offer made in January 2025 for $459,000. That, and it says that one was made with a contingency for sale of another property. So what happened with that offer from January of 2025?
So the
This was the contingency,
Right.
the same thing.
yeah, the same thing. It was, so, and I don't know how to say this, but say that somebody had a house and they wanted to sell that house and purchase ours for much less money. So, and this isn't the reason why I didn't do it, but I just didn't want the house tied up again. Like again, I would just got out of that lease, and I didn't want to tie the house up again with another issue. But, and I don't know if this is possible or not, but could a person sell their house that outside of the program and come into the program and they make a profit from the house they just sold, come in and buy this house for a couple $100,000 less, put the money that they made from the house that wasn't in the program into their pocket, and now they have $200,000 and they just picked up a brand new house for $200,000 less because they qualify for housing, inclusionary housing. Is that a loophole that somebody could slip through, or?
I would hope not.
That's a good question for
property.
Janai,
I
how
wonder
they
if
look
Janai
at
can
that, but
answer
I'm sorry.
that.
But I believe they do look at all assets, including
Right, yeah,
owned
net worth.
properties.
Yeah.
But maybe instead of only a look-back period, there needs to be a look-forward period if somebody's trying to pull that off. Because if you're looking at taxes to find the capital gain and the recapture taxes, you're gonna see that. But if they do it in the same year and you only look back, you won't see that. So it's something that needs to be on the radar.
Janai has her
Okay.
hand up, so she
Janai,
can
please.
respond to that.
She needs to unmute.
Thanks. Yeah, just on the assets question, we do look at assets. So any assets that the potential buyer would make from the sale of a home would absolutely be considered. And that's why our approval letter of them was contingent on the sale of their property and the qualification of their assets.
And so to answer your question, I've had some properties that have, the market's slow right now, and you could be sitting on something, the 753, the last one in Holman Court is, it's been on the market for a few months now. And, so I was a little worried that a contingent is probably not the best way to go right now. So, thank you.
The other thing I want to mention is just to make sure we're clear on, like with the inclusionary housing ordinance, and I completely agree, it's better to get something built. But at what point do we say, okay, a developer operated in good faith, they tried to get something built, it's a year and a half, 2 years later. I don't want the policy to be punitive, and it feels like, and I know it wasn't intentional, but it feels like there was an unintended consequence here. And if I was sitting there looking at us, I'd be like, this feels a little punitive. So I just wanted to put that in.
With all due respect, though, I mean, I think that I appreciate where you're sitting. It's a really difficult spot. But houses get sold on contingency all the time. From my understanding, like that's just part of selling a house. 100%. If there's a good offer there and you want to sell this unit and get out from under it, then I don't see the steps of, having rented it for $1,400 a month and not wanting to show it while there's a renter in there, as well as not wanting to accept this contingency offer of $459K. Like that doesn't say to me that everything that could be done has been done to sell this unit and to keep it in deed restriction for perpetuity, which is kind of that 30,000-foot goal and why we sat for hours writing this inclusionary housing policy.
Okay, well, so I did want to show it. The lady who had the house didn't want to show it. She had it under contract, and she did not want to show it because she was still hoping to buy the house on that part. And contingency,
Contingencies can drag out for a very long time.
it isn't really that, it's not that common to accept a contingency, especially in a good market. It's not common at all. So yeah.
But it's not a good market, and that's something that developers have to factor for when choosing to build a subdevelopment like this.
And I agree with that. The one thing I keep coming back to, though, is that they had a good offer. And they actually put, an extra 10 grand or so into carpeting and air conditioning to try to make the deal go through for the purchaser. The only reason it didn't is because of the way we wrote our deed restrictions where they couldn't get the
Which we're not
loan.
going to rewrite tonight.
I understand that,
Right.
but I'm just.
It's a separate conversation.
It is a separate, it's important,
It is,
full
but it's to
context
see the whole
to
picture.
understand, that there was some good faith operation. I mean, they even refunded they didn't have to give the earnest money back to that person, and they did.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you didn't have to give that earnest money back. You could have recovered some of your interest funds there, rather than coming to the city and asking us to rewrite our deed restriction policy, basically.
That was probably a few months into it at that time, and now it's 22 months later.
Hold you at fault for all of this. It sounds
Thank
super
you.
complicated and difficult, but I think there's two separate issues here, right? There's this issue, which I can't help but feel like if we say yes to this tonight, then we're gonna have a flood of these issues coming at us. So I don't want to open that gate. I think I'd be willing, and I think we already all agreed to looking at the deed restriction policy, but I would like to see Mr. La Rochelle continue trying to sell this deed restricted unit and try to get it sold.
Yeah, we are bound by the way the code is written tonight, right now.
Exactly, and we have to follow. We can't keep changing it. based on individual requests. We can't function that way.
So I don't think that we're trying to rewrite the code tonight. But I do see that he was one of the first builders in this new policy with the CHA. I'm not disrespecting anybody who worked on that or anything that they've done to write that. I'm just saying he was one of the first. He didn't realize he was going to hold on to this house for 22 months. As he approached the building department for this, he was putting two houses forward. He has gone and he has sold one. He did sell that for less than probably it cost to build, especially if he built it at $500,000, very comparable to this one. So he's taken a loss. His company has taken a loss. He has paid interest for a year. Even Bill has decided that it is better for the city to get a built unit. He could have given fees in lieu to begin with. He decided to go along with the inclusionary housing policy and build the house. And so the 165, 580, 56, based on the eight homes where we're doing 1359 a square foot times 1523 is 165.80. He has paid interest for 22 months, which comes up to $77,000 in interest that he has carried.
$49,000 in interest.
No, that was, the 49,000 was for 6 months. He has carried it
No,
for,
not for 6 months. It'll be 14 months.
okay.
Yeah,
where did-
14 times 3,500 is 49,000.
The total interest was 124,000.
Okay, so then he earned rent income on there of 16.8. He could have earned rental income of 22.8, which is $6,000 less in rent that he could have charged at a maximum amount of charging rent on this. He still wouldn't have recouped his $3,500 a month. So basically, we need to take the 165.80.56, subtract the interest, and add in, and then add back in the rent that he received. And that's what, to release this house so that he can sell this on the open market. And that's what I will ask for, is that 165,580 minus 49,000 interest. Whoops, 165,580, 56 minus 49,000.
Mad calculation.
I know.
Any other developer want to calculate how much we owe them
16,
tonight? See a couple of them out there.
Mm.
Get out your calculators.
Bill, did you come up with something?
Yeah, I mean, the total, based off of your calculations, a little over $116,000. I was just noting to David that he has already paid $14,000 and change on fees in lieu that we've collected since the previous agreement. So that would also be deducted from any number. If you did go that route to allow a fee in lieu to be paid, we would also reduce it by that amount.
Because he's already paid.
Yes,
the
he's already
fee in
paid
lieu.
that, yes. So that comes out to just over $100,000 per year calculation that you just provided.
Okay, that's what I would suggest, that he be charged those fees in lieu per these calculations, going with what the code says now, if that's what we're going with, what the code says now with the 1359, and the rents that he did receive, because he did receive some income in there, but he paid interest, and he's paid fees in lieu.
If we're going by what the code says he's supposed to sell this at 120% AMI.
Right. Yeah, and again, like that 6 months that you apply, like that's a time frame that should be part of a calculation that isn't contemplated in our code. That's just 6 months kind of out of thin
I just
air.
keep coming back to the fact they had a contract, and it was because of the way we wrote the language
Right, but right now, we're like in a horse trading thing, we're not discussing the
know.
code, right?
Well, I mean, they're two separate
There's
things.
no way to go about this without appearing to be playing favorites. I mean, Councilmember Pappenfort said it as bluntly and cleanly 45 minutes ago,
Yeah.
which is in the situation that we're in now, our hands are tied by the fact that the way the code is written currently. And when we decide, if this is what we're going to decide, then that's basically changing our code, the language.
Mr. Mayor, I would just make a motion.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just want to
sure.
make one last point, and I'll let you make a motion, is that I don't think this is so much playing favorites as it is being fair, but go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move to deny Resolution 2025-07, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, denying an amendment to Section 7 entitled Inclusionary Housing of the Development Improvement, Subdivision Improvement, and Inclusionary Housing Agreement for the Holman Court Plan Development and Major Subdivision.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Nacarado, seconded by Councilmember Catelli. The motion is to deny Resolution 2025-07, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving an amendment to Section 7 entitled Inclusionary Housing of the Development Improvement Subdivision Agreement and Inclusionary Housing Agreement for the Holman Court Plan Development and Major Subdivision. Further discussion?
Pappenfort,
No.
Critelli,
Wait, so it's an affirmative for a denial, right? So a
That's
yes is
correct.
a no, right? Is that how, or is it a no, is a no the affirmative?
yes is to deny it.
Yes, is to
Yes is
deny.
a no, so yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Fontana,
No, based on the language in the deed restrictions limiting the
This is
sale.
just a no at this point.
No.
Yep,
motion passes.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Resolution 2025-08, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving citizen appointments to the Public Arts Commission pursuant to Section 2-16-30 of the Salida Municipal Code.
Mr. Post is not here, so I will be presenting this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you, you have a resolution to appoint a number of citizens to the Public Art Commission. In January of 2025, there were 6 member appointments, member seats that were vacant due to resignations and terminations of terms. So we had 3 members who wished to apply, and we conducted interviews on the 24th of January. Diesel Post wants to send his deepest apologies to Councilmember Pappenfort for not including her on the council action form. She, along with Councilmember Critelli, Tina Grumman, Dana Pettis, and Diesel Post interviewed 6 applicants for the appointments. You can see the questions that were asked and responded to. The working group is recommending appointments as listed within the motion here. So per our code, there are alternating terms within this commission. So they're recommending Lindsay Ernst, Kirsten Stock, and Lachey Peterson be appointed for 2-year terms expiring on January 31st, 2027. Ken Brandon, Reed Govert, and Martin Jolly for 3-year terms expiring on 1/31/28, and then appointing Ronnie Wright as an alternate member for a 2-year term. Happy to answer any questions if you have them. However, I was not involved in this process, so maybe one of the council members could provide input if you have questions.
So directed to,
You know, it was a fascinating project, and we really enjoyed meeting all of the artists. We were just so thrilled to have so many professional artists wanting to help the community with this. And so we spent hours with these folks, and it was just a thoroughly enjoyable process. So thanks again to everybody who came out and offered their services. we are just thrilled to have all of you aboard, helping us right the ship and decide which direction we're going as we bring all these entities together. So it's a very thrilling time.
You want to add anything? Or?
What she said.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay.
It's amazing how much impact a rabbit walking a dog
I love it.
can have. Yeah, those people came out, so.
Well, that was the problem.
Right.
Everybody was like, well, what about the local people?
So now
this-
they're interested and they're involved. And
Good.
It was a great turnout.
Good.
Yeah.
Great
Quite a
applicants.
wake-up call.
Yeah,
We even had somebody at an art show
yeah. Yeah, right, yeah.
doing an interview.
Yeah, zooming
So we had the
in.
big screens going.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I may offer
Yes,
the motion?
you may.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-08, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving the following appointments to the Public Art Commission. And I need to read all 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Okay. 1, appoint Lindsay Ernst, Kirsten Stock, and LaShae Peterson for 2 two-year terms to expire 1/31/27. 2, appoint Kim Brandon, Reed Govert, and Martin Jolly for a 3-year term to expire 1/31/28. 3, appoint Ronnie Wright as an alternate member for a 2-year term to expire 1/31/27.
Second?
So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Martin. And if it's any consolation, I have to read it as well. And the motion is to approve Resolution 2025-08, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Salida, Colorado, approving the following appointments to the Public Art Commission. Number 1, appoint Lindsay Ernst, Kirsten Stock, and LaShae Peterson for 2 two-year terms to expire 1/31/27. 2, appoint Ken Brandon, Reed Govert, and Martin Jolly for a 3-year terms to expire 1/31/28. And 3, appoint Ronnie Wright as an alternate member for a two-year term to expire 1/31/27. Further discussion?
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
motion passed.
And that takes us to ordinance 2025-04, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Salida granting a non-exclusive franchise agreement to Atmos Energy Corporation for the purpose of providing, selling, and delivering natural gas to the city and its residents, and approving a gas utility franchise agreement concerning the same. This is a first reading and setting a second reading and public hearing for March 4th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you said it perfectly. That's what it is. That's what we're doing. So in our never-ending attempt to update contracts and bring everyone into compliance, we have brought forward the Atmos franchise agreement. We've been working with our city attorney's office, and I think I saw Kurt Paradisa here. Yes, working with Kurt over at Atmos to update our agreement, bring it forward for the city. So this is an update to that agreement. We'll have a public hearing at the March 4th meeting.
Questions?
Thank you, Christy, for catching another contract.
It's fun times. Good times. Good times.
Franchise
I might go to law
agreement
school
sleuth.
after this, and I feel like I'm getting really good at contracts. Yeah, it's
Yeah, you
awesome.
got some spare time.
I'm good, yeah. I'll stop teaching classes and started going to classes.
Mr. Mayor, move to approve ordinance 2025-4, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Atmos Energy Corporation for the purpose of providing, selling, and delivering natural gas to the city and its residents, and approving a gas utility franchise agreement concerning the same. First reading and setting the public hearing for March 4th, 2025.
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Fontana. The motion is to approve ordinance 2025-4, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Atmos Energy Corporation for the purpose of providing, selling, and delivering natural gas to the city and its residents, and approving a gas utility franchise agreement concerning the same. First, this is a first reading and setting the public hearing for March 4th, 2025. Further discussion?
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Pappenfort,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
motion passed.
And next up is ordinance 2025-05, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving Tenderfoot Communications site lease with Visionary Broadband. This is also a first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing for March 4th, 2015.
Thank you. As you all are probably aware, the city of Salida owns a tower on top of Tenderfoot Mountain here across the river. On that tower, within the equipment shelter, we rent to Hilltop Broadband, Verizon, Cahen Radio. We also provide emergency service communication from that site. And Visionary Broadband is also one of our renters. Visionary recently purchased Aristata Communication, who had previously purchased Colorado Central Telecom, that was previously Chaffee County Central Telecom. So
Before
we're
that,
getting, what's that? Going way back when. I think we were doing Morse code, actually, when we signed the first.
Smoke signals.
So we are, once again, just kind of getting this caught up with the proper legal names of everyone involved in this. Adjusting the rent up there. We've had really great conversations with the owners of Visionary Broadband, work with our city attorney's office, so bringing forward what we feel is a very competitive lease to you all. Again, we'll have a public hearing on March 4th to approve this.
Questions or a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2025-5, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving Tenderfoot Communications site lease with Visionary Broadband, first reading and setting the public hearing for March 4th, 2025.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Stevens, and the motion is to approve ordinance 2025-5, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Salida, Colorado, approving Tenderfoot Communications site lease with Visionary Broadband, first reading and setting a public hearing for March 4th, 2025. Further discussion?
I love the $1,500 a month also that we will receive.
It is more than what we're making now.
Yeah.
Is that payable to Councilmember Martin?
Oh.
Is it? I don't know.
Martin,
Hope so.
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Fontana,
Yes.
Peppenfort,
Yes.
motion passed.
Okay, and then council reports. Councilmember Stevens, anything this evening?
Yeah, I have a few things here. First off, start out with the airport. The Colorado Aviation Economic Impact Study came out. There's a lot of good things written up about our airport. If you guys are interested in going and seeing some numbers and seeing what they pull in, how they make their money, and kind of, the profits and losses, or mostly profits that they do receive. You can see that on www.coloradoaviationsystems.com. See under that, the pros board, a lot of new programs coming online through the Parks and Rec and the Prost. You can see those, they've been in the paper. You can look up Salida website. A lot of good activities coming up. Women's volleyball, all kinds of good stuff coming around. Kids kayaking in the pool, getting the kids out there and learning how to paddle. Just a shout out to the new Prost board members. Seem like they're going to be fitting in quite nicely and being able to catch up pretty quickly. And that, let's see, shout out to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Was able to go out there on Saturday night and check that out. It was an amazing production. Had a great time. Everybody's just an amazing show all around. Thanks to the steam plant for allowing that, and and the city for doing what they did to get that rolling. And I also wanted to just kind of say a couple of words about the home and court. I didn't really say much as it was going on. Just kind of reason why I did vote the way that I voted. I saw that he did a lot of things that, there's a lot of things that he probably could have done different, which, we all have those. moments, but there was also a lot of things that he didn't have to do as well. So, you know, I give him a lot of, you know, grace in that, you know, in that respect for those things that he did do. Unfortunately, it's not kind of going the way that he had hoped it to, but the reason I did vote the way that I did vote is because of code and enforcing our code, how it is written now. Kind of like some of the other council members up here on the board have said, if we allow this, then yeah, we're opening the floodgates for this kind of stuff to happen more and more. And kind of felt that right now at this point, we can't really allow that to happen, or we'll be in these negotiations like we are tonight for future, you know, no telling how long down the future path. So that's the reason why I voted the way that I did on that one. Other than that, I think that's all I got.
Thanks. Councilmember Fontana.
So I just wanted to reach out and thank the crew that put up our flags. Yesterday was obviously President's Day, and the flags were put up on the highway, up and down F Street, and I appreciate those people. That is a big responsibility and a lot of duties, and it looked wonderful. I don't know if anybody else went down F Street or on the highway, but I really appreciate that group of people. Paul Smith, Rick Hamilton, and crew are some of them, and I have decided to volunteer for that organization for the next few times that they're gonna put that up. So if you want to volunteer or donate to that program, that is through the Salida Community Center with Elaine Alamein. So I really appreciate them. The other thing I was hoping to bring forward is it sounds like we might need to revisit part of our deed restriction with housing, and how that works with somebody who is in the housing authority or building a unit, and how deed restriction can go with lending and such. And so I was hoping to get some support for staff to look at that, so that Bill and his crew could look.
I would support that.
Thank you.
Second,
Yes.
Thank you. And
Didn't
that's
we
all I
already
have.
ask for that in a work
Yeah.
session?
Yes.
I just wanted.
A work session, yeah.
Yeah, I think
We'll
I
bring
already
it
got
forward on a work
seconded.
session, yes.
Yep, I want to make sure that that's coming
That
forward.
carried through, yes.
Yeah.
Thank
A
you.
long time ago.
That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Nacarado.
Thank you. Yes, so I have my first meeting with the CHA, rejoining that board this Thursday. A couple of the items on the agenda include revising the bylaws, as well as the 505 apartment building, setting that up as an enterprise fund. But there's a lot more on the agenda too, so hopefully the public and any of you will join us if you can Thursday at 4:30 for the CHA board meeting. And then wanted to report on the Sustainability Committee. We continue to meet monthly. Some of the big items coming up this month included CC4CA, which we are a member of, which helped lobby to fight at the state level. There was an initiative for a repeal of the plastic bag fee. And that's currently our only source of funding for sustainability efforts aside from grants. So CC4CA helped lobby to fight that, and it was not repealed. So we still have those funds coming in. Look forward to an educational piece from the Energy Subcommittee of the Sustainability Committee. They're working on educational pieces for the Mountain Mail and Arc Valley Voice. And then I also serve on the Transit Subcommittee for the Sustainability Committee. So it was great to hear from Kate Garwood tonight about some of those numbers, and start to think about how that additional ridership translates to taking vehicles off our roads, and not just for the greenhouse gas emissions, but also for the road wear and tear that comes from those vehicles. So great to see that expansion, and we hope to support continued expansion however we can. And then I just wanted to lift up from the department reports that The city will start its audit process on March 17th. And I know that's been a question for people as the federal government is going through what's being called an audit process, that the city does in fact do an audit every year. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Pappenford.
First, I want to say thank you to our heroes. I'm so thrilled that they have moved into the firehouse now. It's been a long time coming, and they're always here to serve us, and now they're in a much better and safer place so they can do their job. So thank you. We're looking forward to the grand opening whenever you're ready for us. We're ready for you.
Will you be working the grill, chief, or? Okay.
And super humble.
It goes with being a hero.
Yeah.
How can you be humble when you're a hero?
And then I wanted to report on the community foundation work. We've had our first meeting where we've had our training. We've been refreshed with the portal, and I see that I got an assignment of a grant today. The deadline was Friday, so those are starting to come down, so we're gonna start getting the serious work of that done. I'll keep you in the loop when we've made the decisions, because as you know, it's a pretty confidential thing, so you need not ask me who I'm voting for or anything like that. That's not gonna happen. And then I want to call everybody's attention to an email that we received on February the 13th, all the elected officials, asking us to sign a letter from Anna Peterson with the Mountain Pact. And the way I found it, I just searched PACT, P-A-C-T. I invite you all to sign that letter because it is in support of public lands, and it's an excellent letter. When you read it, you'll want to sign up right away. And I believe the deadline for that was early March, so you just need to make a little time to, let's try to protect our public lands. That's all I have this evening.
And I might still have a copy of an email that I think I got when I was on vacation. I can send it to Christy to send it out to everyone.
Was it the one that I sent to you?
I think it came
okay.
directly from her, Anna
Okay.
Peterson.
Okay, I might have gotten it as well.
And she's with the Mountain
Okay,
Pact.
I'll send it to Christy and,
great,
And then that'll make it easy for everybody to find it.
great.
okay. That's it. Councilmember Critelli.
So we had actually two plays going on last weekend. The other one being one that was by a local playwright called Try, which was just really awesome. That was at A Church, beautiful play. Next Sunday we have another one coming to A Church about Richard Durham. And then the weekend after that, it's Fantastic is doing a double feature, one of Lion King and one of Moana. And I like understanding what it looks like because Rocky Horror Picture Show is owned by Disney. It's not cheap to get the rights to these plays, so they must be doing really awesome to be able to show both of those, especially even just to have the cast to do that. And that's exciting. That's next weekend, or two weekends from now. And then a weekend after that, A Church has got another play. All to say that theater is alive and well, and there's officially more theater companies than there are stages, which I guess is a good problem to have. That's really exciting. And yeah, I guess the other thing I just want to cap off is the discussion tonight. It often leaves me feeling pigeonholed into seemingly being cold on this dais, because again, when you are pertaining to words on a code, it's just like, yes, emotions, human qualities like that, but look at the words that are already in black and white, which puts me in a frustrating position. And it's one that is just why it's not a very sought after seat to be in. I will say though, I do look forward to talking further about our code, especially IH. We always had it in mind to be a living document that would constantly be challenged and need to change. It's a completely new approach to housing still, and it needs to change, and it be better with, as things come up that we couldn't have possibly have accounted for. So I look forward to having that and having it be better, and be more helpful, because yes, at the end of the day, it is about getting more people in homes, and that is very important. It's just having to pertain to the mode of operation and the bureaucracy of it all. I guess that's why we're here. You know, not always very romantic, but somebody's got to do it. And I appreciate everybody being very thoughtful in those discussions. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Martin?
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just had a couple of things. I was gone last week, so I'm just super grateful that we have such a great staff that was handling all the city business, and I got to get away and relax. So I really appreciate that. And then just to echo some of what Councilmember Critelli just said, and I also am really looking forward to that conversation. And I really, really hope in the course of that, we can figure out ways to make the deed restrictions a lot more user-friendly. So I just wanted to put that out there. Anything from our treasurer this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got some nice news. We're finishing up the month on our sales tax, finishing up the year on our sales tax reports. Our December city sales tax collections increased by about $75,000 or 9.3% as compared to December of 2023. The city's portion of the Chaffee County sales tax collections increased by about $43,000, which is a 15.9% increase over December of 2023. In total, sales tax receipts are 10.9% higher for December and 4.4% higher for the year. We finished pretty strong there. Also, just in general, with regards to the budget versus actual tracking, our finance director pointed out to me we have not done all of our year-end adjustments yet, but we are still looking very favorable with regards to the general fund balance. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have an attorney on, okay, so no attorney report. Any department updates? I know they were in the,
No, thank you.
okay, wonderful. Okay, well, we do have one thing. That'd be great.
Yes, I move to go into executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 246402-4F, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees. And the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. Presiding officer may ask.
Oh, just put, yes.
City administrator and city attorney's annual performance evaluation.
Wonderful.
Skip the parentheses.
Second.
I'm so sorry. Can we, it's just the city administrator. The city attorney is not here this
Just the city
evening.
administrator.
Okay, just the city, okay, wonderful.
She just said the lawyer's not here.
I'll second that.
Okay, and a second. So we have a motion from Councilmember Pappenfort, seconded by Councilmember Critelli. And the motion is to go into executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-4024F, and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, and any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or of an elected official, or personnel policies that do not require the discussion or matters personal to particular employees. And the following additional details are provided for identification purposes. The city administrator's annual performance evaluation. Further discussion?
Fontana,
Yes.
Nacarado,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Critelli,
Yes.
Peppenfort,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
motion passed.
Great. And just so everybody knows, Nina's, Byron, her husband's
like,
Hello, hello.
Time's up.
Like frantically.
Okay.
Missed your opportunity.
I think.
But I have to comment on the dude.
Was Bill talking about? Bill's already talking.
And I'll give just a quick synopsis of what was discussed.
Okay.
And then we'll, okay. Very good. All right, the time is now 8:06 PM, and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were council members Critelli, Fontana, Stevens, Mayor Dan Shore, Martin, Nacarado, and Pappenford, along with City Administrator Christy Dune and our consultant Kim Smoyer. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. And this meeting was going into executive session. It was a personnel review of City Administrator Dune. And seeing no concerns, the next agenda item would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.